Lance Dunbar finds an opening for a touchdown. Garoppolo retreats, dumps it off for Goodwin, and with his speed, it's no match. He's inside the pylon for the 49ers touchdown.
It's the edge of the world in all of Western civilization. The sun may rise in the east, at least it's settled in a final location. It's understood that Hollywood sells Californication.
As was promised upon dozens of requests, today I'm taking you through the San Francisco 49ers vs LA Rams rivalry. We'll compare all position groups individually, look at the head coaches and their schemes, and I will give you evaluations for the two teams and predictions for their future, going against each other twice a year, every season from now on. This has been by far my biggest project yet, and so I'd appreciate a like on the video and a subscription to my channel if you're a fan of what I'm doing here. Without further ado, let's look beyond football again. I've constructed a scheme by which I will evaluate the individual aspects of both teams, score them against each other, and eventually decide who has the advantage in each category in my opinion. We'll look at quarterbacks, head coaches, and the rest of the teams individually, and evaluate their current position and future expectations. Let's start with the most important and most difficult position in all of sports, the football quarterback, which also happens to be a position that both the 49ers and the Rams are formidably equipped at. I already talked about Jimmy Garoppolo extensively in a previous video. If you've seen that, you already know what I think of him as a player, and if you've not, I'd recommend you do so, if you're into high-level quarterback play like me. Garoppolo ticks every box on every checklist you'll find as it relates to football performance. He knows how to study, knows how to prepare, has a natural chemistry with Kyle Shanahan and the offensive system in the Bay Area, and he can simply sling it. His mistakes are mostly related to footwork and putting the necessary effort into every ball. Some people, some coaches are scared of on-the-field disciplinary issues. I happen to not be one of those people. It's about my favorite issue for a player to have because it's exactly what a coach specializes in fixing. I'm not a psychologist telling my players to stop going out at night and to not drunk drive. I'm a football specialist teaching them how to move their feet, turn their hips and shoulders, and where to point their toes to get the maximum possible accuracy out of a throw. And that's what Garoppolo will need to move him from a top 10 QB to a top 3 QB. And he has the talent and work ethic to make that jump this season. In my breakdown of his tape, I dropped the name Aaron Rodgers for a reason, and I don't do that lightly. About 400 miles south of the Bay Area, the Rams are grooming their own prized possession. Jared Goff is a former first overall pick who flourished under Sean McVay after being written off as a mediocre scrub by some after his rookie season. His talent and scheme fit came to light strongly in a dominant offensive season last year for LA. He's an all-American standout athlete, he's bright, and he has all the arm that an NFL QB needs. I see his ceiling as a 15-year top-notch player who will orchestrate playoff runs close to every season. A Ben Roethlisberger with more consistency on a week-to-week basis when provided with the right support. Comparing the two guys, I'm giving a notch to Jimmy Garoppolo on this first point. He has a special pop that no more than 5 quarterbacks in an entire generation have. The man's attitude on the game is exactly where it's supposed to be. And I think long term, the QB position will be a slight advantage for San Francisco in this matchup. I wasn't as sold on Jared Goff as I should have been when he was drafted, but he's shown that he's all that they expected him to be and more. Don't get me wrong, Goff got it. He really has it. But Garoppolo has it. Jimmy has the higher upside. Again, comparison is Aaron Rodgers versus Big Ben. They both still have stuff to learn, figure out, and perfect. But we're looking at two of the best QB situations in this league. First point goes to the city. Let's move on to the next matchup. We're going to be looking at the offensive line. The Rams' big guys have been performing really well during last year's offensive fireworks, with the addition of Andrew Whitworth lifting the unit to the next level. I'm projecting him to anchor a line alongside Roger Saffold, John Sullivan, Jamon Brown, and Rob Havenstein, and I think they'll provide Jared Goff with great protection. All these guys are nice fits for the offensive scheme. They can move and zone block and allow Todd Gurley to break through for those big plays consistently. On the 49ers side, I really like what they did this offseason. They came into last year as one of the weakest offensive lines in the league. Over the course of 1 year, they signed elite free agent center Weston Richburg, drafted Mike McGlinchey out of Notre Dame, and also have a former first-round pick in Joshua Garnett returning from injury. This is probably the most improved unit on the roster, led by longtime veteran Joe Staley, who is flat out one of the most underrated players in NFL history. I believe both guard spots are up for grabs this season. Laken Tomlinson might have the left guard spot on lock, with Mike Person, Jonathan Cooper, and Josh Garnett competing for a starting gig at right guard. Talent-wise, I want to give this point to San Francisco, though they overhauled 3 out of 5 starting O-linemen this season, which makes me think that the Rams unit will get off to a more efficient start, having already built more chemistry together. I'm calling this comparison a draw for now, and moving on to the next unit. Let's get running backs out of the way. Todd Gurley is obviously one of the best to do it right now. He had a legitimate case for MVP of the league in an age that favors quarterbacks more than ever before. I don't see a reason why he wouldn't perform as a top 3 rusher in 2018 again. Like Jared Goff, Gurley's talents were brought out by Sean McVay after he had been criticized as inconsistent before. The 49ers acquired Jerick McKinnon from the Minnesota Vikings, which is a slight improvement over Carlos Hyde in my opinion. McKinnon has a legitimate chance to make waves in an offensive style that is designed to get running backs involved in the pass game. Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo just might also form the meanest play-action game in the NFL together. Add to that one of the fastest receiving cores in the league, teams won't be giving the 49ers a lot of single high safety looks this year, that's for sure. All the better for McKinnon to have a great season. I'm going to mention that the 49ers also have the best fullback, aka offensive weapon in the league in Kyle Juszczyk. No less, this point goes to South California for sure. Todd Gurley is the best back in this division, which has legit meaning to it with the existence of one David Johnson. We're tied up at 1.5 points a pop. Time to round up the offensive side of the pigskin with the wide receivers. I already mentioned the main features of the 49ers playing in that direction. Young, quick guys who can run every route in the playbook to excel in Shanahan's West Coast derived offense, which is one of the most complicated systems in football. I like the emergence of Marquise Goodwin as a wide receiver 1, with great slot support by Trent Taylor and explosive rookie Dante Pettis. The crucial piece missing in this offense so far is the Julio Jones type player. Pierre Garçon is good, but he's not on the level with the Falcon Spider-Man that Shanahan had access to in his dominant stint with Atlanta. This unit is super talented but also super young. They will be lifted up by Garoppolo's excellence and outstanding play calling from the coach, but they're not a top-notch wideout unit by themselves, however. I got one more name for you to bring up in discussion now to seem incredibly smart a year or two in the future. George Kittle, under the radar tight end for the 49ers and soon to be recognized as a top 5 talent in that position. He's a player I've thought about covering in an individual video. Back to mediocre receiving units, this group feels like the bottleneck of the Rams offense as well. I like Brandon Cooks, I don't love him as a wide receiver 1. Cooper Kupp is promising and in a good situation, while Robert Woods will likely get the starting bid as the number 3. If there's one thing that Sean McVay is truly great at, it's getting the best out of his players, to help them hit the proverbial ceiling of their potential. I think the Rams receiving core will put up better numbers than they have any right to, judging from individual ability. Cooks is an upgrade from Sammy Watkins, no doubt. This unit might run into struggles occasionally. The NFC West secondaries aren't exactly soft, and even in this matchup it'll be interesting to see if these guys can take some work off of Todd Gurley's shoulders against the 49ers secondary that all of a sudden looks like it has serious potential. Gerald Everett is, in my eyes, likely to grab the tight end 1 spot over Tyler Higbee. I'm gonna call this a draw as well. I like the 49ers in terms of versatility in the pass game, though a great talent in Brandon Cooks and the help that they will receive from all the attention demanded by the run game puts the Rams on an equal level here. I like the tight end room of the red and gold over LA, if only by a small margin. Halfway through the analysis, we have both teams tied at 2 points. At this point, let me remind you to like the video for some hype of football season finally being back. I'd appreciate it if you took 5 seconds to do so, and we'll get right into the defensive side of the ball. I'm looking at both defensive lines as potentially the strongest units on their respective teams. The Rams have added perennial Pro Bowler and all-around badass Ndamukong Suh to an interior unit that already features the best defensive tackle in the game in Aaron Donald. These guys are set for serious domination in the trenches. I don't see a lot of people running on them like that. You simply can't block anyone. It's kind of like the J.J. Watt, Vince Wilfork, and Jadeveon Clowney situation that the Texans had going on a few years ago, where there just aren't enough blockers to double team everyone up front, even though that's what you would have to do. Now, Wade Phillips runs a 3-4 defense, meaning he'll have 3 down linemen with their hands in the dirt lined up with 4 linebackers behind them. The players seem to fit this system perfectly. Ndamukong Suh can 2-gap over the center all day, allowing Aaron Donald and Michael Brockers to wreak havoc all over the line. This will be one of the best units in the NFL this year, calling it right now. 49ers will be running a 43 defense, meaning that defensive coordinator Robert Saleh will try to generate pressure with the speedy defensive ends like Cassius Marsh and Jeremiah Tauchu in passing downs, while having a great mix of all-rounders play in the middle. Solomon Thomas is a dark horse here for Breakout Player of the Year, if he finds his rhythm in this system. I see DeForest Buckner lining up on a 3 technique quite a bit, meaning he'll be playing the outside shoulder of the offensive guard on mostly the strong side of the formation. This is perfect because the 3 technique is typically the interior lineman that gets the one-on-one, and Buckner has the physical advantage over every single guard in this league due to his 6'7" frame and freakishly long arms. I'm giving the point to the defensive beef bags of Los Angeles though. Aaron Donald is simply too dominant, and I have more question marks about the 49ers pass rush and how they will get consistent play out of the Leo position. Moving on. Man, I like what the 49ers are doing with the linebackers. I really do. 2 years ago, everyone was running for 200 yards on this team, and their defensive front offered about as much resistance as a revolving door. They got rid of players that didn't suit their scheme and replaced them with better fits. Aaron Lynch is gone. Eli Harold is now gone. When they gave away Navarro Bowman, I was shocked out of my mind for about 2 seconds. And then I realized that it made sense. He simply didn't fit the side-to-side coverage style requirements of the defense anymore. He's a 3-4 run plugger and excelled along Patrick Willis during the Jim Harbaugh era. Malcolm Smith fits what they're doing perfectly. He came along with Robert Saleh from the Seattle style of defense. Fred Warner was a stud in college, and I love that draft pick. Reuben Foster is the best inside linebacker in the NFL not named Luke Kuechly. Come and change my mind. He's also suspended for the first 2 games of the season though, so they will have to rely on their depth to hold it together. At the same time, linebacker seems to be the Achilles heel of the Rams' defensive front. Mark Barron is a solid veteran and will take charge of that unit. I'm assuming Matt Longacre to start alongside him, but there's still spots to be filled. I wouldn't be surprised if the 34 philosophy turned into one of the big nickel defenses more often than not this year. Bring an extra defensive back whose talent probably strongly outweighs that of a 4th linebacker. This point goes to the Bay again. Guys will be flying around and allowed to shine and make a lot of plays in this scheme. Rams linebackers will need to be supported from both the front and the back, not to become a liability on his roster. Man, have both of these teams developed a secondary all of a sudden. The Rams added Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters to form the most freakish duo of cornerbacks outside of Jacksonville. Nickel Roby-Coleman is the 3rd guy who will see more play than a lot of people expect him to, being brought into those nickel packages that they will rely on more as the defensive line shuts down any attempt at a run game, and the linebackers are the biggest weakness on the team. I also like LaMarcus Joyner more than most people do, and I'm projecting John Johnson to do a solid job enough at strong safety to give this backfield the lockdown ability the Rams fans are excited to see this year. A highly talented but young and largely unproven secondary in San Francisco will profit hugely from free agent addition Richard Sherman. This guy is an absolute leader and competitor. Whether he be able to perform as a top 3 cornerback level in the league once again remains to be seen, but he's the best cornerback this team had since Carlos Rogers in my opinion, no doubt, and a lot better than that at peak performance. The play we could be seeing from Ahkello Witherspoon in year 2 reaches anywhere from Ahkello Witherspoon in year 1 to defensive MVP of the league. He made insane progress since being drafted and has shown flashes of potential monster abilities throughout last year in the preseason. Sky's the ceiling for this kid, but I need to give him another season of evaluation in a full-time starting role to feel confident about further evaluation. I'm taking Adrian Colbert and Jaquiski Tartt to start at the safety spots, probably slightly underrated guys due to the general suck of the 49ers defense as a whole over the last few seasons. Their safeties will contribute to make strong improvements for the Red and Gold in 2018. I'm giving this point to the Rams with an ever so slight advantage due to the more veteran presence and experience, though I see the upside of both secondaries incredibly high already. For the sake of this video length, I will save myself a huge argument for specialists here. I think both kicking games will be far above average. Splitting the points here, there's no huge difference in kicker quality to be recognized. After the roster is done, the standings are 4.5 points for the Rams and 3.5 for San Francisco. There's one last thing to have a take at though. This is an incredible story. Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan are two of the brightest young coaches in the NFL. Both offensive masterminds, both hired to their first ever head coaching job at the same time, and both seem to have turned the tides for their respective teams. They also belong to the same football family tree, which is the West Coast offense heritage. Both their careers can be tracked back over John Gruden, Kyle Shanahan, and George Seifert to Bill Walsh, the mastermind behind the offensive system that is still the predominant force in the NFL to this day. Aside from those two, people like new Titans offensive coordinator Matt LaFleur and Jay Gruden, among others, are all part of that lineage. This tells me one thing for certain. Both of these guys will have massive success. Both of these teams will have massive success. Both franchises have experienced the dog years and are now set with all the important pieces in place to dominate the NFL for a decade. Now I'm calling this comparison a draw. Shanahan and McVay represent very similar football ideation, though their coaching styles are completely different. There's a fantastic article about their relationship on Sports Illustrated. I'm going to link it in the description of this video, and I highly encourage anyone interested to go over there and have a read. As such, I won't reiterate the entire article. Let's wrap up this video. The final result is Rams 5, 49ers 4. This basically represents the expectations that I had going into this analysis in the first place. The Rams are ahead by just a bit right now. I think more specifically, they're ahead 1 year. They were already a year ahead of the 49ers last year when McVay and Shanahan took over. The quality of talent on the roster was higher, and most importantly, the quarterback was in place. That is the single most important milestone in a full team rebuild in the NFL. That said, what are my outlooks for those two teams? The Rams are in the win now phase. They expect 12-4. They expect the playoffs. They expect to go to the Super Bowl this year. I think San Francisco is 1 year removed now. I'll be the last person to ever question the magic of Garoppolo. He hasn't demonstrated the ability to lose an NFL game so far. But I think we'll see a season out of San Francisco similar as we've seen out of LA last year. The 49ers might make the playoffs. They have a good shot at winning record, but they might also just miss it. They are not among my top 5 contenders for the Super Bowl this year. The Rams are. In case you're wondering, the other teams are the Patriots, Steelers, Vikings, and Eagles. If I'm a Rams fan, I want to win it all right now. If I'm a 49ers fan, I'm prepared mentally to have to wait just 1 more year to get back to the top where both of these historically great and proud teams definitely belong. I thank everyone for watching this video. I will engage as much as possible in discussions, so please leave any comments, any opinions in the comments, hit me up on Twitter, feel free to contact me at all times. I've also been playing with the idea of doing a weekly prediction video throughout the entire NFL season. If there's any interest in that at all, let me hear it. I've said it twice now, last chance to like this video before the boogeyman shows up and takes you. Until next time, I've been Alex, and I'll see you soon.